Welcome to Faith Over Fear, the Christian Pregnancy and Birth podcast. I'm Natalie Portman, a wife, mama, birth doula, and childbirth educator. And I believe God has a better way for us to experience birth, one without fear, striving, or self-glorification. If you're ready to stop feeling overwhelmed and instead trust the Lord more deeply in pregnancy, birth, and motherhood, you're in the right place. Here you'll find inspiring birth stories, biblical encouragement, and practical wisdom to help you walk in faith over fear during this beautiful and challenging season. Now let's get started. Hey friend, and welcome back to the podcast. I'm Natalie. I'm a Christian birth doula and childbirth educator, and I help mamas like you prepare for birth with confidence, peace, and faith that's rooted in Jesus instead of fear. Today, we are going to be talking about something that really has been stirring in my heart. The Lord has really been just impressing this message on me of what are you praying for when it comes to your birth? So before we dive in, I did want to share this story with you. So during my first two pregnancies, as I was preparing for the birth, I carried a lot of anxiety about how everything would go, as if it was all up to me, as if my birth story would be some kind of report card or indication of my strength or my self-worth. And I am naturally a very strong-willed, determined person, which, can be a good thing in many areas of life. But when it came to preparing for birth, and when I would think about my birth experience that was upcoming, that determination became a weight that honestly crushed me, with just so much pressure and anxiety to make everything as perfect as possible. As if I could somehow guarantee my birth experience if I just prepared enough and tried hard enough. And that's literally not my place, nor is it yours. And it took me those first two births to really understand that was where my mind was at, even if I would have probably never verbalized that or, seen that, recognized that. But now that I'm in this pregnancy with my third, I'm experiencing something that is totally different. So my heart is in a much more trusting, faith-filled place. Of course, I'm still having my birth preferences. We're still planning, God willing, a home birth again. But I hold these expectations and these hopes with a peace that passes understanding, where I really do feel that the Lord has my baby's birth story already written. And I'm just in excited anticipation of how the Lord is going to show up during that experience. And this assurance is honestly new for me. I am normally a very anxiety-prone person, and I love to control or have that feeling of control for outcomes. But God has been so gracious with me to help me see him rightly as the sovereign God over all things. And to do what I know to do in preparation, of course, but to understand that my birth story is not a reflection of me or my efforts. So today's episode is called Signs You're Praying for the Wrong Things for Your Birth. And we're going to be talking about how to shift from control to surrender, from fear to faith, and from self-focus to God-glorifying trust. Pregnancy really does have this way of exposing our desire for control. We plan, we research, we prepare, and all of that is good. That can be really good stewardship. But when our peace starts to depend on things going our way, we are quietly moving from trusting God to trying to be God. And I have definitely caught myself praying for things like comfort, ease, and an uncomplicated birth story without realizing that sometimes God's glory really does shine brightest in moments that break us before they even bless us. He is not interested in giving us an ideal experience. He is interested in shaping our hearts to look more like his. And shaping often happens in tension between our plans and his purpose. So you might be thinking, okay, Natalie, are you saying I shouldn't prepare? That I should just show up for this birth and just hope for the best? Absolutely not. That's not at all what I'm saying. Let's dive into why preparation with the right heart posture is totally different than just winging it. So, before we get to the key verse for this episode, I wanted to unpack the story that Jesus tells in Matthew 25, and it's the parable of the talents. So, a master was going on a journey and he entrusted his servants with different amounts of money or talents. So, one servant receives 5 talents, another receives 2, and then another receives 1 talent. And the servant who had 5 talents went out and he doubled it. And the one who had 2 talents did the same. But then the one servant who had the 1 talent, out of fear, buried it in the ground. And so when the master returned, he celebrated the first 2 who had been faithful with what they were given, saying, "Well done, good and faithful servant." But the servant who hid his talent out of fear was rebuked, not because he had a little, but because he did not trust the heart of his master with what he had been given. So you might be thinking, okay, how is this tied to birth? So let's tie this all in. You might be the mama walking into labor with what feels like 5 talents. Your pregnancy is going really well, you're low risk, your baby's healthy, you have a really great birth team, and you're feeling prepared and confident for your upcoming birth. Or maybe you're the mom who is with the 1 talent and your pregnancy is complicated and you have a lot of fears. Maybe you even have past birth trauma or a loss, and that is making this birth feel really heavy and scary. But either way, the Lord isn't measuring your worth or faith by how much you have to work with. He is simply asking you, will you be faithful with what I have placed in your hands? So the servant with more talents wasn't more loved, and the servant with fewer wasn't forgotten. Both were given exactly what the master knew they could carry, and both had the opportunity to respond with faith. So in the same way, God has entrusted you with this birth journey, unique in its challenges and its beauty and its purpose, and your role isn't to produce a perfect birth or a perfect birth story. It's to steward your preparation, your mindset, your body, your heart with faith, and to trust Him with the outcome. Sadly, our culture is really obsessed over control and outcomes, but God has called us to something radically different than that, and it's faithful stewardship. So we're told that a successful birth is one that goes smoothly or is planned, but Jesus says in Matthew 25:23, "Well done, good and faithful servant." Notice He does not say successful or even fruitful servant. He praised those 2 servants who were faithful with what they had been entrusted. So you don't have to predict every twist and turn. You don't have to be perfect at every step. You are simply called to prepare with faith, not fear, and to trust the outcome to the one who holds all things together. This is where we see the difference between a faithful and a willful mindset. So a willful mindset prays from striving. If I do this, then I will get the outcome I want. A faithful mindset, on the other hand, prays from surrender. So you pray things like, Lord, I'm going to prepare with wisdom and trust you with the rest. And that small but pivotal mindset shift really does transform your birth from a place of, okay, this is a performance to this is a moment that I get to worship and glorify the Lord. And this isn't about neglecting preparation and just, again, hoping for the best. It's about holding your plan with open hands while you prepare with wisdom. And it's about doing your part faithfully while trusting God with His part, which, again, is out of your control. So now let's dive into the signs that you might be praying the wrong things for your birth. I'm not pointing these out to shame you, but I want you to notice where your heart might be if you're needing a little redirection towards surrender. So sign number 1, your prayers are mostly about avoiding pain or problems. So if your prayers sound like, Lord, please don't let this hurt too much. Please don't let anything go wrong. Your focus might be more on comfort than Christ-likeness. Instead of, Lord, please don't let this labor hurt too much or let the pain be manageable. Try, Lord, please be my strength when I've come to the end of my own. Another way you can swap out prayers, instead of saying, please don't let anything go wrong, instead pray, Lord, whatever comes up, help me trust that you are with me and you are working all things for my good and your glory. It is okay to want peace and safety. I'm not saying that those things are bad, but even more powerful is to pray, Lord, meet me in whatever comes. Be my comfort, be my strength, and be my victory. So that's sign number 1. Sign number 2 is you feel anxious when you think about your birth not going according to plan. So when your peace depends on everything going just right, it may mean that control has become your source of comfort and not the Lord. So instead of praying, Lord, please let everything go according to my birth plan, pray, Lord, I've prepared wisely, and now I surrender my plans to yours. Give me flexibility and peace to flow with however this birth unfolds. Faith doesn't mean that we're not planning. It just means that we're preparing and then releasing the outcome to the Lord. Sign number 3. Your prayers compare your birth to someone else's or even to your past experience. And that could be positive or negative. So if you find yourself saying, Lord, I hope my birth goes like hers, or I pray that this doesn't happen to me again, or I pray that I had the exact same birth as last time, then your heart might be caught between longing for control and you're just fearing disappointment. So instead of praying things like, Lord, give me a birth story like hers, pray for things like, Lord, write a birth story that's uniquely mine and uniquely yours. Help me to receive it with gratitude, whatever it looks like. And then, we just know that comparison really can creep in through both pride and pain. So measuring your birth against someone else's story, positive or negative, or like I'm saying, like a past birth experience of yours, God is not in the business of recycling birth stories. He is writing yours brand new. And so just resting in that the Lord is writing a story that is uniquely yours. And just like in the parable of the talents, he's not asking you to replicate anyone else's results. Only you get to be faithful what he has placed in your hands. Sign number 4. You feel pressure to get it right so you can prove your strength. If your prayers sound like striving, something like, help me prove to myself that I can do this naturally, or help me to show everyone how strong I am, your focus might have drifted from his glory to yours. And that sounds really harsh, but instead of praying things like, Lord, help me prove that I'm strong enough for this, pray to the Lord, however this birth unfolds, unmedicated or medicated, vaginal or cesarean, let your strength be made perfect in my weakness. Because true faith doesn't prove, it rests. And then our final sign number 5, your prayers stop at your own experience. And so if you are praying things that are me-focused instead of we-focused, so this might sound like, Lord, help me to have a good experience. I want you to instead start shifting to praying things like, Lord, fill that delivery room with your presence. Let your character and nature be made evident to my baby, to my husband, to the nurses, to my doctor, my midwife. Let everyone in that space encounter you. And when your focus begins to shift from what I will feel and more into how the Lord will move, your perspective really does begin to transform. So there is a chance you might be thinking, okay, but what if I pray faithfully and I still end up with a very traumatic birth? Or I'm surrendering things, but then things go like terribly wrong. And Mama, I hear you. And if you have walked through previous birth trauma or even a really intense loss, I am so sorry. And just know, the Lord is not out to get you. It is not a reflection of him wanting to punish you or anything like that. But here is what I do know. God's faithfulness is not measured by our outcomes, and his goodness isn't dependent on our comfort. Sometimes he does meet us in the valley, but he does not abandon us there, and he doesn't leave us there. But instead, he really does carry us in those deep valleys in ways we just never could have imagined. So faithful prayers are not guaranteeing a great birth. I'm not saying that even praying these things is, okay, that's the key to unlocking the most amazing birth experience. Absolutely not. But this does guarantee that the Lord's presence will be there no matter what happens. And for those of you thinking, how do I trust God when I have experienced loss before? Your questions and fears and all of that is so valid. And trust after a traumatic experience is built very slowly, gently, one prayer at a time. So start praying wherever you're at. A prayer like, Lord, I believe, but help my unbelief. That is such a true, powerful, appropriate, faith-filled prayer. So I wanted to close, obviously we're talking about prayer a lot, but let's go ahead and wrap up this episode with a prayer. Dear Lord, I pray for the mama who is listening to the sound of my voice right now. You know her heart in and out. You know her hopes and her fears and her deep desires and how she wants to honor you with her pregnancy and birth. And I just ask, Lord, that you would meet her wherever she is. And if she's praying from a place of control, I ask you that you would reveal in her heart how to trust you. And if she's praying from fear, I ask that you would just remind her that perfect love casts out fear. If she's carrying the weight of outcomes, whether that's a previous birth or just thinking ahead, I ask that you would help her to lay those down at your feet, to cast those cares on you, Lord. And I ask that you would just let her see that you are both in the blessing and in the breaking. And Lord, just help her to prepare with wisdom. I pray that you would entrust her with faithful stewardship in her body, in her mind, and in her plans, and that she would just trust you with all of the rest of it. And Lord, when she finally does give birth to her precious baby, I pray that her heart would just echo with the words, "Well done, good and faithful servant." I ask this in your precious name, Jesus. Amen. If this episode was an encouragement to you, maybe a little bit stinging, like I know it stings my heart even to ponder some of these things, but would you take a moment to just share this with another mama who might need this reminder? And here's your challenge for this week. I want you to take one of the prayers that I mentioned or laid out as an example, and I want you to start rewriting some of your own prayers from a place of surrender rather than control. And you are more than welcome to share it with me on Instagram. I'm at Faith Over Fear Birth Doula, and I would just love to just pray alongside of you with that prayer. And if you have not yet already, please rate and review the podcast. I know that takes a few minutes out of your day, but it really does go a long way in helping more mamas find this information, this faith-centered space to just hear truth and to know that they're not walking in birth alone and with fear. You can also go to my website, faithoverfearbirth.com, and explore some other ways that I can support you, whether that's my 30-day devotional, childbirth education, or doing virtual birth support with me. I am so honored to walk beside you in this journey of surrender, faith, and peace. And until next time, remember that your birth story is in the hands of the one who writes only good things. That's it for today on Faith Over Fear, the Christian Pregnancy and Birth podcast. I hope today's conversation encouraged your heart and equipped you to trust God more deeply in your pregnancy, birth, and motherhood journey. Hey, before you go, I want to gift you with a freebie. I've compiled some of my most popular resources inside the Christian Mama Birth Prep Library. It includes practical birth prep handouts, such as the labor positions cheat sheet, birth preferences checklist, and provider questions guide. You'll also get exclusive discounts and even a worship labor playlist to bring God's peace into your birth space. To get instant access, simply visit faithoverfearbirth.com or click the link in the episode show notes to sign up. You'll receive immediate access to these valuable resources created just for you. If today's episode blessed you, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with some other mamas who could use this encouragement. Your support helps more women find this podcast and embrace faith-filled birth and motherhood. Let's keep choosing faith over fear. Bye-bye for now.